Hey everyone, and so a week after our first partner showcase of the year, we get our first Sony State of Play of the year. It is a big, meaty one, much like the Steakhouse Whopper I ate earlier. It is definitely a lot to unpack here, both new titles coming and their turnable favorites as well. So let's begin. First off, we have a sequel to 2021's Kena Bridge of Spirits, originally titled Kena Scars of Cosmora, where the title character's not only gotten a lot older, but also the challenges she faces have increased significantly. And even though, they're not, not totally getting out of the live service market, as I will point out here, I am glad that there's plenty of single player stuff to discuss, especially as I'm glad my higher video is getting plenty of attention. It's just I was a bit preemptive about the dust settling, and a lot of people being let go. So let's continue. Okay, so Goseyote, a Legends update, which, much like for other directors Kagosu Tsushima, is an additive horde mode of sorts, which is not a replacement or impeding development of a future Time Sucker Punch, but something to enjoy as a side dish for the main entree of the adventure title main. And I will definitely once again state that I have no plans to cover hunting grounds at all. I mean, even with all the drama, it just doesn't look that interesting to me. But there is stuff of coming in this presentation that I do consider interesting. Point: Death Stranding 2 on the beach on PC, with the highly acclaimed title having a whole new audience there now that the time exclusivity has lapsed for being first on PS5, and I have not been as down on the idea of putting the games on the games there as other people have. I just hope that the launch goes smoothly and there's less shenanigans involving the PS Plus login this time. And now, on to one of our first multiplayer titles here. For Loop, there's still no release date for this one, but it has potential, I'll admit. It reminds me of something like an unofficial game adaptation of the All You Need Is Kill light novel series. I'll have to check out the recent anime version, which I hear is even more faithful to the novel than 2014's Little Scene, but much loved Edge of Tomorrow. And even though how bad Head Robot's video game endeavors haven't borne as much fruit as expected, it's definitely not the worst thing ever. Okay, a little bit more details on Pragmata. I am low-key excited for this new Capcom IP coming in on April 24th, and I definitely will have to give this a little try before I buy the whole thing. And it's not connected to the Mega Man franchise, a lot of people initially speculated, but it does use ideas from that title, those titles in unique ways, and especially has a cinematic feel towards it, and which I think is also giving a nice amount of breathing room for what's one of the most anticipated titles in this presentation. February 27th, Resident Evil Requiem, I'm currently replaying the other games, get ready for this one. The demo should be any day now. How they still have not announced it, interestingly enough. Maybe it'll be in a situation where it'll be separate ones for both Leon's campaign, which is more combat heavy, and Grace's campaign, which is gonna be focusing more on the puzzle solving, and atmospheric aspects of the games. Where am intrigued by both the storylines. It's not a full open world installment, but the maps do look significantly expansive for both the new and returning locations. And I'm once again glad that they're building on like how the horror aspects from other titles, most especially the other with the ones like Seven Biohazard again, sort of like a Southern Gothic in the vein of the Evil Dead trilogy or Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, especially early installments. Once 8 Village was very much in the vein of their own take on like the Universal and Hammer horror, classic movie monsters being reimagined, where Heisenberg, of course, being like a reversal of Dr. Frankenstein, and his chimeras being like a reversal of the monster, and that's off my head. I'm still getting very much of a vibe for this game of a lot of the psychological thrillers David Fincher, and in particular a lot of influence of Seven and Zodiac in there. The way that Grace, that Ashford the Elder might not actually be dead, but rather she wants her daughter back and needs her for the plan, whatever it might be. Alright, so March 3rd, Legacy of Kain Defiance Remastered. On top of having a bunch of content that wasn't in the original release, some of which were even based on games that never actually got made, they definitely have done a good job with not only giving the option to be able to stick with the classic visuals and mechanics, but also the new ones. It looks like in the same vein of stuff Crystal Dynamics did for how cleaning up the Tomb Raider titles, and there'll be more to talk about there this weekend. Especially since it happens to be also Laura's canonical birthday, and I'm glad that this one definitely is a better look than the proposed Deus Ex remaster, which they had to actually cancel the pre-orders of and actually give their money back, which is one of the rare things I've had to do when a game was just that potentially jank. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. Brigadine Abyss, apologies for pronunciation, is coming this year. For a series that's been running supposedly ever since 1998, it doesn't quite ring a bell. Though I'm not entirely surprised given how big a year that was for video games. It's one of the years I can definitely mark as like a watershed year in terms of the amount and quality of content they put out. Some of which I am still having rotation to this day. However, there is another title from a franchise also been around for a long time, which is incidentally celebrating an anniversary here. Okay, so June 25th, Dead or Alive 6 Last Round, both free and paid versions. It admittedly wasn't quite as good as the other Dead or Alive games, but I will take it. I just hope they don't pull that stunt with the cosmetics again. Where they not only charged you for or something as trivial as like a hair dye, but also to change it back, and the pieces is whenever they total more than the actual game cost, it's never a good sign. In this case, it was over $2,000 worth. There's also a new game coming soon. Supposedly the 7th title will be more in line with the first 5. and my understanding it's going to be an actual fighting game, not just another beach volleyball or game simulator spinoff. I mean, I never really cared for those too much personally. Control Resonance, the long-awaited sequel to the highly acclaimed aimed Control, looking to expand upon on that game's ideas and gameplay in a way the FBC Firebreak could not. And even though they're claiming that they're going to keeping on with that title based on the player counts and where they're at, I honestly don't think that's going to happen. And the question to me is not if that game will go dirt, rather when. And there'll be another time to discuss the perils of the games as service market, but I still maintain it'll be after I put out the videos I want to on the single player games I'm playing instead. And to add to the growing list of titles on Microsoft's ecosystem going multi-platform, Beast of Reincarnation is coming to PS5 on August 4th. The release there thankfully means we won't have to rely solely on Xbox to make bank, and as with Pokemon comparisons, guys, I once again reiterate that a developer is capable of making more than one kind of game. And apart from the fact that they're both JRPGs made by Game Freak, it does not make any sense to me. It'd be like comparing, say, a Fire Emblem to Paper Mario because they're both made by Intelligent Systems. It's just odd, if I may be casually blunt. Now, I will get to one of the worst kept secrets of this latest wave. Rayman, for its 30th anniversary, he is finally getting a new lease on life with his very first game being given like the interactive museum treatment by Digital Eclipse. I think those are right call there. There's been rumblings about it for a long time. I'm glad that this was spared the recent chaos at Ubisoft. The digital version of the game is coming out tomorrow, with a physical release coming out on June 26th. I was kind of like how including multiple versions in there, including the original prototype that they used to pitch the game. See, where they're not trying to solely rely on the very same live service swill. They can actually still do something interesting. Okay, so Mina the Hollower, a sort of roguelite game in the vein of handheld platform action games. Games I've been keeping an eye on for quite a while now, and while people wonder if it's going to be like another unicorn kind of title, like with like Silksong was the longest time, it is definitely a one that I am definitely eager to try. It's coming out officially in the spring, far from some people guessing it could be as far away as 2030, and I'm sure where it'll be then. And we also have the exclusive demo tomorrow. So, like I'm pointing out, I have been doing best to point out release dates of games when I have them, even if they're just like a release window of a certain year. So, February 19th, Neva Prologue, the prequel to Neva Extinctions Forever, is definitely another one I'm going to be keeping watch over, since the other game was actually quite unique, I would say. Right? And I do always give my PS Plus credit for showing me titles I normally wouldn't give active thought towards. being free of my account, mean that I really maintain that and I would not have bought them otherwise. I really mean that. But it's not just smaller scale titles that hold this banner. Some of them can be a, a titles that I'm not even sure I wanted, but I now have my interest peaked. Okay, so 2027, Yako Shinobi Ops, a spiritual successor to like the Tenchu stealth action franchise from the same team. Sounds very good to me. It's still fairly early on, but it looks promising, I'll say that much. Especially since, regrettably, the original IP is still in limbo. I mean, where I haven't even seen any hide nor hair of even having those games re-released on PS Classics, though there are other titles we'll get to in a few moments, and that will likely be that way. And as an aside, Project Windless is certainly something, though I would not be able to tell you what, based on what was shown to me by comparison. Alright, so Star Wars Galactic Racer coming this year. No date beyond that yet. However, we're seeing a bit more than was shown off at the awards, where not just in terms of like pod races being lovely recreated, but also speeder bikes, and swoop bikes, and other sorts of speeders being in play. And even though it's still fairly early on, I'm open to seeing if they can keep the ability to damage your opponent's vehicles, also keeping your own safe, like they had in Racer Revenge, which I talked about a little bit over a year ago. So it's definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on. Also be keeping my finger on both Fate of the Republic as well, especially with some people who worked on Legends Republic coming back too. 007 First Light coming May 27th, being the first Bond game we've had now in 14 years. Looks to be a significant improvement over the terrible 007 Legends. And also, what is really intriguing me is it's really focusing on when he was first learning the ropes on 00 program, not really pulling from any of the other prior films, instead using elements of Ian Fleming's original novels, especially, where it also should be interesting to see what they'll do from gameplay perspective as well. They're not copying what they did in the Hitman games, but they're definitely clearly putting their own spin on those ones, whether or not you want to get in and out quietly or go in noisy. And also, I think I might have some fun with Lenny Kravitz as the bad guy in there. I could tell when they revealed him, he is certainly enjoying himself immensely. And next up, on August 26th, it turns out the rumors were true, and they finally have it working on our systems. Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 2, featuring Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots, and Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, the canonical one of the PSP spin-offs, as opposed to the host of Portable Ops, as well as the tactical card game, a Metal Gear Acid, and its sequel. And we also get like the digital graphic novels, as well as a Game Boy title Metal Gear Ghost Babel. I'll see what you did there. And all the three of which are something well worth playing. And even though I was kind of hoping for Rising Revengeance as well, my guess that'll still be a possibility later down the line. I guess not entirely a Konami's decision to also have to close to level Platinum as well, man. And before I get to into the obvious one, I still maintain the subjects of tour review as well are badly, like anything else is. Is they are most people are okay with the villain of the game being like a senator from Texas if that senator is powered by nanomachines, son. And in that same vein, or rather inksac, there's there's Darwin's paradox. I mean, on April 2nd, something of tactical cephalopod action. And another pleasant surprise while I'm on that subject is Castlevania Balance Curse coming this year, celebrating 40 years. It's something of a reimagining or at least a retelling of Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse using elements from the hit animated show. Oh, and also being worked on by people who made the excellent Dead Cells. Also turns out how the roguelite they also did a expansion pack for the game as well. And while I'm still on this one wrap of the Konami titles, finally get more info on Silent Hill Townfall, which is still coming this year, and I'm also cautiously optimistic about after other recent games, such as the remake of second game and Silent Hill F. I mean, because not every game has focused exclusively on the town, but I get ahead of myself. I have nothing major to add to Rev Noir beyond it just being curious. We also have a cinematic trailer for a new John Wick game, which will not only show off the very artsy approach to combat that the movies have made effective use of, but also has Keanu Reeves reprising his role in the title character to do the voice and motion capture. It's actually pretty impressive stuff, and it's not even the only game that has actually shown it's translated pretty well to that, because there was this other one called John Wick Hex, which I don't think you can actually legally play anymore, but in all honesty, I'm not bitter. I gotta try not to be in these new circumstances, I mean. March 5th, it looks like they moved up a day. Marathon. I hear things are trending upward, especially in China, even with the plagiarism controversy a bit ago. I definitely like the style it has. Kind of like a DOS punk future, distinctly different from the original whole games back in the day. But I definitely am gonna keep an open mind. The Server Slam Open Beta is going to be the week of February 26th next, and I definitely hope it does alright. I mean, because I can't say anything for certain, especially with how things go on this market. I mean, I'll simply state for now, as someone who really wants to get back to talking about single player titles, for every Concord, there's a more rivals. For every high guard, and art graders, so to speak. Again, even though with the AI controversy of the voiceovers on that one, as a game has done some interesting things with the extraction shooter mechanics. Hopefully this one will as well. Alright, and now we have a little taste of what's coming next to PS Plus, both this month and beyond. Spider-Man 2 is coming to the extra tier on here this Tuesday. I am almost done my first playthrough, clearing out some of the secrets and side missions before I close story campaign. I'll also probably do New Game Plus as well, which will be nice. The Dark Resurrection version of Tekken 5 will be coming next month, which very popular in both arcades and on PSP. Time Crisis is in May. They found a way to make this classic rail shooter work, and and definitely even an early example of a cover shooter. And even though there's no release date for it yet, we have another Day 1 title coming in the near future known as Big Walk. And even though Sony doesn't do every single one day and date like Microsoft does, when they do that, I can definitely tell it's a game that I definitely be sure to keep interest in, or at least awareness of. I mean, as someone who does try to do the best to keep a pretty decent finger on the pulse of the release calendar, it really has to work hard to slip by my radar, or in some cases, end up ghosting me, and those for a few weeks on end. Alright, we also have a deep dive on Housemarque's Soros, their follow up to the very unique roguelike Returnal, and well, not exactly the same as that game was, in which you really need to have 5 hours set aside to really run through the whole thing, and so forget pounding copious amounts of caffeinated drinks during that, especially. Hey, it's definitely building upon the ideas that they did in that game, and they definitely got welcomed to Sony's umbrella after that game proved to be like a modest commercial success. And keep in mind, that was when in the PS5 I was still relatively new. The install base is keeping, despite all doom and gloom, is keeping pace with the PS4 similar time frame. About 92 million units worldwide and counting. And it is definitely a one I can expect to enjoy once it comes out as well. Oh, and even though we may not have gotten an Wolverine in details in this presentation, we definitely got details on a game featuring Wolverine as a nice little bait and switch. Yes, folks, we not only now finally have a release date from Tokon on August 6th, we also have a new mutant team as part of the roster, the Unbreakable X-Men, with Storm as their leader, Wolverine, voiced by the ever-delicious Steve Bloom, but also, I really appreciate how they're actually spotlighting lesser-known members of the team, like Danger, who was reverse engineered by tech from the Shi'ar, and Magic, who, even though she's a character that has a lot of potential, it looks like they're gonna do a way better job of utilizing her than the New Mutants did. And as a whole, just the idea to me of a Marvel fighting game from the same developers who worked on similar kind of ones like Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, and Dragon Ball FighterZ, to name a few, sounds good to me. In fact, I would not object if they were given like a new Shonen Jump crossover game, not just with featuring big names like Goku, Luffy, Naruto, and Ichigo, but also other characters that have been popular in what's known as the Dark Era, and as like a complete swerve from the defunct Jump Force, instead of realism, quote unquote, you go all in on the more out there aspects of the material, especially. And to close out this presentation, we get arguably the other worst kept secret that's in this console ecosystem. We are getting full on remakes of the original God of War trilogy. I'm going to presume with the technology we have, the more recent songs we've seen, and original Kratos voice actor coming back to reprise his role, which definitely is always a pleasant surprise. We've also gotten a nice little game that's a 2D side scroller, which actually could fit the challenge that the franchise is known for, or especially, which serves a nice sort of connective tissue between the original trilogy the and the more recent titles, and also which is actually out now. And with that in mind, I can definitely say, hey, that that I'm glad that uh, Santa Monica Studios is another studio who has been close with Sony since day one. That could also push back and say, nah, we don't think doing the games as service title with this range is a good idea. Yeah, yeah, and it's not clear whether or not they're going to be handling the remix on lonesome, or they're going to be pulling these sort of blue points, and like they had before. Or I mean, and I actually would prefer if they took their time with a potential or one of Bloodborne, like with From stuff. Like people said the same thing about Demon Souls never happening, but as it turns out, it actually ended up being pretty solid. So I think FromSoft can take all the time they need for anything they would work on as Insomniac. So and that'll be all for now. I will definitely see you all again very soon. So take care, everyone.